The product we're talking about, LAMUM, License Asset Management with Usage Monitoring, it is a complete integrated solution then for license management of engineering licenses, which I'll come back to further on in this session. If you're aware of the terms software asset management, you'll be aware that really understanding everything about your vendor, the licenses they have, the renewal dates, all that kind of contact information, storing all that in one central location is kind of known as software asset management. We have that as a main product within LAMUM. On top of that, we do extensive usage monitoring. That's against kind of FlexLM license daemons. So that's network flexible sharing. So you might have a number of licenses, but you might actually have more users. And it's all to do with license ratios. So not just FlexLM, but we can also do that across a number of other kind of derivative license daemons as well, which I'll come on to. Within here, we have a whole host of graphs, reports, alerts, some of which we'll see later on. And the idea being that all of that information can be put together. So the software asset management with all these kind of graphing options is to give us that kind of decision support system to understand whether we've got too many licenses or too few. Well, from a licensing perspective, yeah, best practices really are as straightforward as knowing how many licenses you own as a company this is, or across a department, who's using those licenses. And you need that for compliance and audit purposes. How often those licenses are being used? Well, you might have 100 licenses, but you might only have 60 that are regularly used. Where are those licenses being used? Again, you may have some contractual terms in your license that says you can only use those licenses in the USA or in Denmark. But actually, many of those licenses, some companies are sharing those with a subsidiary in India or something, so they're breaching their license conditions. And then how much do those licenses cost? And obviously that's to do with understanding your value for money aspect there. I often show this this maturity index, which I put together as well. So, you know, how are companies really looking after their engineering licenses? Well, you're probably surprised to hear that some companies out there just aren't actually doing anything with their licenses. So they're not monitoring anything. They pretty much buy the licenses, then year on year they simply renew. The next level up, then a level I call reactive, is where somebody will say, I can't get a license, and reactively then the software administrator will go in, have a look, see who's got the license and kind of sort out that predicament. Or they're doing some kind of ad hoc licensing reporting. Level 2, the defined. So they're actually monitoring some licenses, maybe they've got some basic reports. But at level 2, they're doing a bit more kind of trend analysis. So maybe they have some in-house scripts, maybe they've bought a tool to do that. Level 3, then, I'd say they're in control. So this is where they're really fully understanding the people that are using their licenses, where they are, where they're located. But they're also, it's probably a big enough company that they are charging back the cost of the licenses to different departments, or they're possibly charging back the time that people use on the most expensive licenses back to those departments. So it's kind of a very intelligent view on it. Level 4, well, they're proactive. So this is where they're actually got a user dashboard. This is where they're able to show their users the tools that are in use. And maybe they've got some data integrations. Maybe they're pumping some of this data, licensing data out to Tableau or something like that. So they're doing some further analysis. And then kind of at what I call the strategic level, the highest level, is all of the above, but also combining all this with a software asset management tool as well. So they can understand when their renewals are coming up, everything about the software, so that they can really have a good view of renewal management. And it's at this top level here then, level 5. Very few people are working at that level, but that's really what we're going to talk about today, because that's the level that we can provide within LAMUM. So LAMUM, It stands for License Assets Management, and then secondly, Usage Monitoring. Now, the architecture here it's effectively two products, although they're very heavily integrated. License Asset Management is a secured Apache web page, which allows us to look at all the information about the inventory, the costs, the tools, contact information, kind of contracts, all that kind of stuff, which we'll come on to. Usage monitoring then can be on port 8182. So this is an open port, which gives people within the company direct access, should you want them to, I hasten to add. And so this is where we have all the usage monitoring. So we have literally hundreds of reports, and I'll take you through some of these as we go through. So how does it look? Well, you'll be familiar then on the left-hand side. So we've got kind of our CAD or our EDA clients, and they're requesting a license from the license server. And on that license server, we have a license file, and we have this kind of vendor daemon, which for every people who are asking for a license, it says, have we got enough? Yes, we have, and it pushes them back out. Well, what LAMUM is it sits on a different server, and we're querying this license server along with all the others out there. And we're storing all that information that's going on. So all these kind of requests that go in and out, we're storing that within our database as well. We're taking a kind of a view of that, and we're presenting this within the Apache front-end website, which you'll see in a moment. The licenses that we support, so FlexLM is by far the most common that we see, but the derivatives, kind of Reprise, Sentinel, if you have a Dassault system environment, it's LUM or DSLS. We've got lots of Altium, Altair is another popular one. We support Windchill, MathLM. More recently, we've added Codemeter, Atlassian, and Zemax. And that's a point to note here that we are constantly adding these supported tools as we go. As I said, we have our in-house development team, and everything we do is really related to customer requests. And we aim to release 2 releases per year. So single sign-on, it's certainly something that we've introduced more recently, and this allows the administrator or the people that log into the LAMUM database, they can log in securely via SSO. So within the LAM tool, we can have a whole host of different kind of vendor information, and let's just flick across then to the tool to see what we're talking about here. So from the front end, as I said, it runs on Apache. We can see the login screen. So I'm just going to log in as an administrator. On the top line here, then we see everything to do with the license asset management. And let's go ahead and look at some of the licenses. So we can see here, yeah, we've got a vendor of Abacus, Adobe, Cadence, so this is where we can store all the information in here. So some of the products we have, the quantities, what tool type it is. I mentioned FlexLM, but some of the others. We might then store the license server, where that's located. Maybe you've got one in kind of America, one in Europe, and one in India. How we identify these, what kind of port numbers it's running on, whether we have some kind of restriction. So maybe in the US, we're allowed to run it on a wide area network. Maybe some of the licenses we're only allowed to buy and run them at our San Diego site on the LAN. So this is very important with geographic restrictions. Purchase types, subscriptions, are they perpetual, and expiry dates, responsible people. So we can also filter all this as well. So let's just filter on some of those so we can kind of cut this down. So we can see, yeah, this is only the licenses that this chap here is responsible for globally. Now in here, we can also look after not just the entities that we can monitor, but this is a proper software asset management tool. So we could add in Microsoft, Adobe, and we could run this just adding in each of these, understanding the details of each of these. So if we go to vendors, I'm just going to head down to Cadence. It's a well-known EDA piece of software. So this is one which is kind of a bit more fully filled out within this demonstration. So we can store a number of documents. So you might have a non-disclosure agreement, perpetual subscription licenses, details about agreed agreements, who it was agreed with. We can link out to different PDF documents. We can also then have addresses. I don't know about you, but certainly I discovered that in my time, the sales reps changed all the time. So to have one central location where these details are kept up to date is really great. And then the information about all these different software licenses. When we bought them, the amount, and even the purchase orders if you want to. So we can get up to this top level here, so we can have all the different purchase orders against it, should you want to. You don't need to put this information in, but the companies that are running the highest level of software asset management are looking at this data. Expirations. So in here we can see that our cadence maintenance is coming up. Oh, okay, hold on. It's already happened. That expired in the last 30 days. It would have been here. And we can have a number of reports at this stage and alerts that really tell us when things are expiring as well. So we can do a number of reports here against every different aspect of what we have here. So with that then, I'm just going to head back to the presentation. So we've seen here that we can have a number of lines in our license asset management tool. As part of reading these stuff in, we can read these licenses in. What we do is we pass the FlexLAM license file. So that takes a license file which, to the untrained eye, is gobbledygook, to be honest, but it makes it into this man-readable format, so you can easily see what the features are in the license and the quantities. We also then have in the tool a FlexLAM daemon manager, which I'll show you in a moment, that allows us to kind of start, stop, reread. Options files are very popular for providing kind of entitlement. So that allows you to kind of give users, certain groups and users access or revoke access to certain licenses. What we're going to come on to then is showing you a number of usage reports as well. We can do interactive, on-demand and batch reporting. So we can look at the concurrent view and we can look at all the historical usage of that. The current viewpoint we're going to have a look at is we have a number of different views of doing that, gas gauges and kind of a current view. So without further ado, let's have a look at each of those then. So one of the tabs I didn't discuss before was this usage tab, and we'll move on to that. So this usage tab here, okay, we have this kind of home area, which is kind of a central dashboard that gets into a number of different reports. We then have a whole host of different reports that sit across here at this level. So you can see here at this home view, I'm looking at 3 different software types. NX is a Siemens NX product. MATLAB is MATLAB, and AccuRev. So these 3 different MATLABs here, well, this is typically where you have different license servers. So we're monitoring 3 different ones. So one could be in the US, one could be in Europe, one could be in India, or they could just be in different departments. That's why we see them kind of duplicated here. So the first column here is this real-time column, which we'll have a look at. And then to the right-hand side here, we can see that we have all the historical reports that sit in this level. So I might want to just have a look at the real-time view of NX. So if I do so, we can see then all the people that are using that tool at the moment. So we can see, okay, we have 15 licenses. So we have 15 licenses, 11 are in use, and only 4 are available. So we can see here that, yeah, we've got 11 people using each of these different features here. This is an NX bundle, and each of these users has one license in use. Do we have any borrowed? So some people like to do license borrowing, where they can take the licenses off the network. So we store the user machine as well. And we can also then tell who's had it open the longest. So this person's had it open for roughly 12.5 hours. And if we wanted to, we could click remove. So assuming we have the administrator privileges, not just within LAMUM, but also on the server to be able to run an LM remove command, then that would kill his session. And that could be for many different reasons, often because somebody's gone on holiday or somebody's gone to a meeting and this is an expensive license. If we click on the user's name, we can actually see the details. If we have Active Directory, we can sort of tell all the information in here. So that's one of the current views. Another view is we can have a look then at the key license features that we're looking for, and we can see this color-coded percentage to see, okay, yeah, we are within our threshold criteria here. There's nothing that's kind of getting a denial status here. Let's have a view. We also have this thing called a gas gauge view as well. And on the gas gauge view, it's just another really nice kind of visual way that we can see all these licenses in use. And this is constantly updated. This is updated as often as we want it to be, but typically companies sit around kind of 5 to 10 minutes to look at this information. Okay, so that's a little about the real time. We could do that for the FlexLM licenses. Some of the other license types really rely on a kind of a log view. So from a historical point of view, so from a history, we can look at if your license file has a whole host of different features in there. Notice this is a bundle. We're looking at the bundle level, but all the kind of areas underneath it. So we can look at the top level bundle, and we can see, okay, yeah, we have a number of different time frames that we can set. So we have some preset ones, but you can customize it to whatever you want. So this is a 7-day graph. And we can see the top line here is the capacity level. We can then, as we go through, just really look then at the interactive aspects of it. And we can see this trend line as well. So you might want to look at a 90-day. Let's submit that. And that will give us a better view then. Okay, that trend line in the middle is pretty even, okay? But if you saw the trend heading upwards, you'd know that at some point you're going to have to start buying more licenses. Each of these images, we can download them as JPEGs, and we can create a batch report as well on that. So that's something that you could receive weekly, monthly, and so on. For each of these historical views, we also have then a top 10 pie chart. So the duration, actually we can say this is pretty even, but for certain licenses you can then pick up on some of the key users. So yeah, understanding who your key users are is really good during upgrades or kind of user acceptance testing. So we can see, yeah, the number of times people have checked out as well. Okay, so we'll just go back to the Home tab. So that's a little bit about the history. That history can be done for each of these, you know, so we might go and have a look in at the MATLAB. Yep, here we go. So let's imagine I wanted to get a batch report of this every 7 days. We can do this create batch report. And that allows us, everything within the report is actually a URL. So that graphic we saw, if we grab this URL and put it in a web page, we can open that, we'd always get the same thing generated. So we might just say 7-day MATLAB. And at that stage, it's a graph. How often do we want it? I want it weekly as an email. I want it emailed to me, and I'm the one that created it. So I'm going to add that as a report. And we can see then down the bottom, I've got my 7-day MATLAB and a whole host here of other batch reports. So moving on then to the historical reports, as we were, history, we're going to start working through, so user reports, group details. So user details, if I click in here, again, let's just choose on this same thing. So we can see a view here then of all the users that have used that feature, that license feature, over the last 7 days. Obviously, we can expand that out, but we might want to have a look then at that total usage. So we can see then easily who the users are that have used it the most. So this guy here has used it the most. He hasn't got the most checkouts, but he's certainly had it for the longest duration. And we can see then here a chargeback percentage. So typically, if you've got a really super expensive add-on license to kind of your main licenses, you might charge that department back for the usage that's been given for each of those. So we can see, yeah, up to 100%. Okay, I'm just going to, one of the things we can do is export this chart to Excel, submit that. That allows us to open up in Excel. We can add a column in there with the pricing. Very, very easily allows us to create our chargeback reports. Group details. So this is really much the same. Now we can have a number of different groups, so we can set up a huge number of different groups if we want to analyze the usage across for that license, that feature across those groups. And those groups can be done in a number of ways. We can create the groups from Active Directory. We can import and export an Excel list, or we can do group maintenance within this interface here, where we can create a new group name. So let's say we've got this one called Group 1. We can edit the group list, so that allows us to add and update that group as to who they are. So there's many different ways that we can create these groups, and there's reporting as to whether we've got any users who don't sit in each of these groups as well. So user reporting, group reporting. Let's look at heat map. Okay, so again, for this feature, when was the time, so looking at this, the number of checkouts we had over the days of the week, when are the hotspots for the highest usage? And we can see here that Wednesday afternoon at 3:30, we're getting this dark red color. Okay, so that's our highest use. For some reason, on a Thursday at 1 o'clock, there's basically nobody using the system. And these are all tools then for us to go in and understand why. Probably we've got a meeting, like a global all hands meeting that happens here. Is that good use of our licenses? Could we change that to get a better spread of our licenses? Maybe. So these are all elements of us working this out. The concurrency graph. Okay, let's look at, okay, I'm going to change to the Monday to Friday 9 till 5 view, because that's kind of a slightly better view for us, really. So we can see we own 15 licenses. Yeah, we can see 15 licenses on this chart. So this shows us the percentage of use, so the probability that we're going to have this number of users. So we can see 12.5 is the highest here. So actually 12.5% of the time, we have 13 people concurrently on the system. Just under 5% of the time, actually all licenses are in use. So looking at this is a pretty kind of equal spread. I certainly wouldn't want to look at caching any licenses. What we typically see is lots of the spread that goes down like this, and maybe the last 15 licenses just aren't used. And you have to wonder to yourself whether those licenses we're getting the best value from. Denials. Yeah, denials are really interesting. So denials against, again, if we look against the Siemens, so we can see, yeah, right, okay. So in November 2020, we had 5 denials. Okay, yep, on the 9th, we only had the 1. Oh yeah, that's a bad one. -4 is the typical one we see because it's this licensed number already reached. Okay, so that's where we can see, people are going to say, right, I couldn't get a license. Now that's not necessarily a bad thing, because you want to be running quite close to the bone. You want to be running at license user ratios that maybe 1 or 2 people get a denial every so often. Whereas if you never see any denials, you have to question, to yourself whether you have too many licenses. So you can see under each of these tabs we have a whole host of other drop downs with more reports that sit in this level at this stage. Okay, let's just have a look at zero usage. So zero usage for this this server. Okay, let's look at a 30-day features have ever been used. So you have to kind of question some of these licenses here. Again, if you've got a bundle, as we do, we can see that actually within the bundle, none of these elements here have ever been used. So if it's a bundle that you negotiate with your vendor, maybe you want to have a look at these and just kind of renegotiate your bundle. For each of these, we can also do something called feature name aliasing. So we can actually change the name of these. So you might want to change this one to being something a bit more man-readable. And to do that, we would go down to this change feature name aliasing. And you know, this might be the feature. Well, we're going to change this to read something. Yeah, so we can actually read what it says, something a bit more reasonable. Okay, and the averages report as well. So the last one for averages. So let's look at 30 days. Okay, so we can see here for each of these different licenses, the usage, the average usage. So typically the users have been using it for an hour each. 8.2 number of users on it, number of times at max, and a user percentage there. But this really plays into our alerting system as well. So under alerts, so we might, if we're getting near capacity, we can have an alert for that. Denial thresholds, so we talked about denials. If we're getting lots of those, we can start getting email alerts for that. You might want users to get an email every time a license becomes available if they're that hotly contested. Obviously, if your license demons are down, you might want to have an email for that. Expiration alerts. So yes, your licenses are going to expire soon, because certainly within a license file, you might not have everything expiring at the same time. So we can get alerts on those. Duplicate license checkout. Maybe you've got licenses. A user is on a couple of different PCs trying to check out the same license. So we have an alert that comes up with that. And what I'm looking for here is this long checkout alert. So the long checkout alert can be combined with this average time. So we can actually say, well, if somebody's had a license out for an hour and a half, we can send them an email or a warning that says, you know, typically people, the average is an hour, you've had it out for an hour and a half. Do you consider you still need it? Which allows people to really think about whether they need this to really improve the usage ratio on this. Okay, so I promised I'd show you the license daemon. So under this daemon, we can see our Siemens, our FlexLAM licenses are up. Under here, we can start, stop and reread. We can also then read the license files, the options files, look at the debug files, and kind of look at some general information about that. So this really has been a super quick overview, and we have so much more. So I highly encourage you to contact us for a demonstration. But really the main takeaways are we have a full license asset management tool that sits at this level. And then from a usage monitoring, we can look at the real-time view. And then we have a whole host of different report types that sit and look at the historical use. Under each of these kind of drop downs, we can start looking at even more detail as well, multiple features, comparing against each other, comprehensive checkouts. Maybe you want to go down to millisecond level. And we can create a number of favorite reports as well. So rather than having to construct them as we did, we can simply go and pull up those details as we go through. So a real whistle-stop tour there of a number of different report types. So we looked at the different kind of checkout overviews, gas gauges, so a very quick way of seeing what's in use. That kind of looking at the Active Directory information for each of these users. So it's a real great view of understanding everything about the users that you're getting. So some people actually create maybe with a gas gauge view, so they have monitors up in their office in a kind of a command center, and they can see the licenses that are going on there. Obviously, this is simply LAMUM. The monitors they had in-house for other things. So historical usage, you know, we've got the graphs, we've got the tables, we preset with a number of different times, but you can also do a custom period for any of these. The historical view, we had the top 10 different users. We talked about the heat maps going on. Some of these heat maps, yeah, it's easy to then see where certain meetings or where your clash points are going to be. We also have heat maps for denials as well, which I didn't show you, but are certainly possible. So again, you might have to question, well, actually, we're getting a lot of denials then 8 o'clock on a Monday morning. You know, is there some way we can spread our users around further? Concurrency graphs. So again, you know, are we getting the best use of our licenses? So we could do custom times, but the Monday to Friday 8 till 5 is a very popular one. Zero usage reports, we talked about. If we haven't used them in a year, should we really be paying for them? And yeah, we talked about the user reports and the reports. So users, this allows us to do a kind of our chargeback reporting. Again, groups. People are very, very interested in the different group use of the different tools and features for their chargeback percentages as well. So we've seen interactively groups. Yeah, we can create them, or we can import from Excel, or most popular is really Active Directory. Okay, so yeah, a number of different denials, and this is some of the kind of more advanced tools, feature graphs. Actually, I didn't show you this. I probably should have done. This is what we call the multi-graph view. It's a dashboard with up to 8 graphs, and it really shows a lot of what we've seen. Let's just flip back and have a look at that then. So if we go to batch, multi-graph view select, let's have a look at this. So again, one of these features. This is a fantastic view because it shows us all of these different charts relating to that license feature without having to click through. We've got all of them presented on one page. And this looks at some of the features we have upcoming with interface design. But yeah, so we can see we might want to toggle off a certain number of these, maybe the 24/7. If we submit that, so we've got a kind of, it regenerates and recreates that view. The best thing about this is we can create this as a batch report. So if we submit that, what we're going to end up with then is we're going to get this report emailed through to us every week, every month, however we want to do it. So fantastic functionality here that we're seeing. So we talked a bit about alerts, batch reports, really super easy to create these batch reports. Now, one of the things which I should mention, and briefly did, is that all of these reports that we see here are actually URLs. So this report that we're looking at here is actually, if we look at this top level, it's this 8182, and it is open. So what it allows us to do is take this URL and we can copy it into a document, we could copy it into an email, we could send it via Slack or something like that to somebody. Once they click on that, then they'll get back to this exactly the same view here, so they can actually see this charting and so on. And that comes into its own where you might be looking at some of the real-time data, and we can restrict this view as well, should we need to. Okay, we've covered a lot here, so we're coming into the last couple of slides. Data accuracy is critical to us. We live by what we're doing here. We've actually developed a unique algorithm to double check the data that are coming in and out. It's very easy if people have in-house tools or some other kind of basic tools. Sometimes it's easy to kind of overstate usage by up to 150%, which doesn't help anybody in this kind of renewal view. So what have we seen here? I hope you've seen that we've got a really comprehensive inventory asset management tool. We've got some fantastic reporting capabilities. Not only have we got the kind of on demand, so looking at the current, we can also construct them as we go, which we create as favorites, but also we've got some fantastic batch reports as well as we go through. Lots of alerts and some great functions there for dealing with kind of entitlement. I should just mention then, people wonder how complex it is. Well, we can have you up and running in under an hour. So you can download the software, and with a bit of configuration with your FlexLM service, typically it's about an hour to install and configure and just guide you through some of the initial reports. Upgrading, again, super easy, 15 minutes. We've got loads of information on our website, tmeda.com/resources. There's a great search function there, so you can go and have a look through. The help function, obviously, within the tool gives you loads. Should you need to, we also offer on-site implementation packages. It's something that some users pick up with the training, but as part of the sales process, we can certainly guide you through each of these things. So from a proposition point of view, I hope you've picked up on this. Understanding the best practices, who, what, where, when, and why, you'll without a doubt understand that you're probably not using your licenses to your full potential. So we know that you can typically save around 20% of your annual license costs, or certainly cost avoidance from buying new licenses, which is where a lot of our customers come from, which is a huge payback. The return on investment on buying LAMUM is absolutely massive. And talk to us about some of our case studies, because this is stuff that our customers see week in, week out. It helps you efficiently use your existing engineering software, really squeezing out the very best value. And we'll work with you for best practices as well. So how do we get these savings? It's just as I referred to, accurately knowing what you have, really understanding what you've got so you can better negotiate with vendors. And it's all these elements, zero usage, looking at the average, the long checkouts, tracking true denials, are those denials, are they bad denials? Are they, should they be happening? Can we reorganize how teams work to make sure that we avoid denials, and then avoid having to purchase new licenses?